Spooky friends. This is Colleen.
And this is Margaret.
And we're the Cousins Weird.
And we're together.
We're together today.
Yes.
And you can tell, we don't even have to tell them that because...
They can see it.
Well, you can see it live. But number two, if we can say the Cousins Weird at the same time, you know we're in the same room.
We're in the same room.
Please forgive my appearance if you're seeing this live. I look like an old grandma today. Feel like an old... But I've been up since 4 a.m. My dad had...
You look beautiful.
Thank you. My dad had procedures today that were like 7 hours long in Syracuse, and we had to be there at 6 a.m. So I've been awake since 4, and Colleen doesn't like to be awake that early.
Nobody likes to be awake. Used to have to get up that early when I was working at Panera, and that was...
So we're going to jump into it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what you're talking about.
No,
I didn't even accidentally see it this week.
Oh, yeah, you did last week. Last time I did it.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, but this time you don't know.
I don't.
It's a surprise. Okay, so in England before 1857, if you wanted a divorce, you had to obtain a literal private act of parliament. So on top of the complication, like how complicated it was also super expensive, and not your average working class person could get a divorce. They couldn't afford it, and it wasn't easily given out. Like, it wasn't something they did, really. You had to have a lot of money and like a lot of prestige to be able to get away with it. So what was a couple to do if they didn't want to be together anymore? What would you do if you wanted to get away from this person you married and you're like, no, I don't want to be with them anymore?
Probably murder.
No, not murder. You would take your wife to the market and sell her to the highest bidder, of course. Wife selling. That's what you do.
What?
You wife sell. So
For the poor people.
Yes.
Would do this.
Yes.
Wow.
Centuries before divorce was accessible, selling your wife to someone else was allowed. It wasn't technically allowed, but they kind of made it like work for them. So they could technically separate as long as someone else bought her. It was like because women back then were considered property. So they kind of used that loophole of, well, she's my property. If I sell her like cattle,
oh my God,
then this person is responsible for her.
That is
from here on
terrible.
forward. Yeah.
That is a terrible trend.
This actually dates way back to the 16th century.
If no one buys me.
Well, then you're stuck with him and he's stuck with you. This dates back to the 16th century, and there have been at least, when they started documenting them, which some people documented it like they would a sale of anything because it made it more legal, you know. From 1837 to 1901, 108 documented cases of wife selling happened.
Oh my God.
But that's just the documented ones. That doesn't count the ones that people didn't write down or have, written down somewhere where you would find. I don't know where they documented, but it wasn't documented.
And sales deeds, probably.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Deeds of sale. That's horrible.
So, it happened throughout the country, but Yorkshire seemed to be the most popular place that people did it, or I don't know if they went there to the market purposely to do it, or if they're just from there and they all wanted divorces and they didn't like each other. I don't know, but a third of the cases alone were from Yorkshire. I mean, technically you could just walk away from your partner and be like, yeah, I'm done, I don't want this. But if a man did it, he technically could be sued for abandonment by not by his wife though. Like the parliament and stuff would be mad at him for doing that. Because then she becomes like a
ward of the state almost. Yeah.
But if a wife did it, there was danger that if she went off to be with someone else, that the husband could...
illegitimate children.
Well, not even that. The husband could actually come after the new person that she's with and demand large sums of money because he slept with his wife.
Yikes.
So he could technically sue him in a way. Wives couldn't sue their husbands for that. That wasn't anything they had the right to do. No. But they could, if a man left his wife, or if a wife left a husband and met someone else and tried to be with them, he could go after her, after the new man, for lots of money, because you're sleeping with my property and I should get money for that.
Ew.
And that happened a lot. Like, if there was adultery stuff, like it happened at Hamilton, the musical, remember?
I didn't actually see it yet.
Yeah, well, it happened. So You should see it because that's sad to me that you've not seen that yet.
I know. I need to go see it performed.
Well, that's expensive, and I can't afford that.
Yes. Well, I'm sure there's a traveling.
Yeah, the traveling class is like $500, $300.
What?
Yeah. It's so good, though.
You used to be able to see plays for like $100.
I know.
Now it's post-COVID and everything.
Well, you know what we need to do? We need to sell our wives. And get money for the ticket.
Sell our husband?
Yeah. So, to sell your wife, you had to announce it ahead of time.
Okay.
You could take an ad in the newspaper or just word of mouth was fine. The sale itself was much like selling their cattle. The wife would be led to the market with a halter of rope or ribbon if they're fancy.
Oh, God.
She would stand on an elevated platform for other buyers to see her. Yeah. Sometimes an auctioneer would oversee the whole thing and do the whole bidding thing, you know. I don't know if they did that back then, but I just assume that all of them sound like. Sometimes it was more privately done where they went to a tavern, but there had to be people present for it to be
Was this like the man who bought her was her new husband? Is that
yes.
Ew. That's horrible.
Now, if the wife was unfaithful, she would be sold to her new lover. Sometimes even the wife's own family members would just pay some money for her so that the marriage could be over. Just because sometimes they're just like, we can't do this anymore. And this one lady in Plymouth in 1822 was so eager to not be with her husband anymore, she bought herself for £3.
She bought herself.
Good
for her.
When her lover never showed up. So she's like, screw this. I don't want you. I'm going to buy myself.
Good for her.
I know. She's my hero.
Yeah.
The husband would sometimes announce his wife's weight, like you would a cattle.
Check her teeth.
Yeah, listing off her virtues.
Ew.
If there wasn't a lover there to buy her, like she had an affair, it was just a regular, we don't want to be together, no other reason, like we just don't want to be together, there could be a bidding war. Like people actually were like, oh, so they were like trying to, oh, she's sturdy, she can
Ew.
sow the field.
That is just the most horrible thing. Yeah. That is terrible.
And when the sale happened, when the sale was final, that meant that the new person who bought her was responsible for her financially to care for her. And the old former husband was giving up the property that came with his wife. So because when she's his property, anything she has is his, like a dowry or an inheritance or anything that she had would go to the new person. Mm-hmm. So they would lose everything, but they got payment. So they were okay with it. And they were like, this bitch is out of my life. I don't have to deal with it anymore, I guess. I don't know.
She nagged me.
Yes, she nagged me too much. So, now you're thinking, this is terrible. These poor women. No. The women were all for it because they couldn't do it unless the wife agreed. And she could say, accept or deny the sale herself.
Oh, well, see, that's not.
Yeah, first you're like, oh my God, but kind of is still awful. But at least she had to consent to it, right?
Get out of a marriage with some horrible man who probably smells.
Yeah. If she found the buyer undesirable, she could say, nah, no, we're not doing that. Not you. Only 4 documented cases where the wife did not consent to the sale and it still happened. So only 4 out of 108 documented. That's really documented. For that time.
Maybe the other ones.
That's probably why they weren't documented. I don't know. But for the time, 4 out of 108 sounds pretty decent.
I know even back then in England, it was a huge scandal to get divorced. Huge. And a woman couldn't divorce a man for being unfaithful, but a man could divorce his wife for being unfaithful.
Yeah.
So he could sow his oats all over town. Yes. And it's okay. But if she was caught alone in a room with a man, even if they didn't do anything, then he could divorce her legally. Yeah,
and technically, too, a woman had to prove a lot to divorce her husband. It could happen. But one of the big things that they did, and this is terrible, and this is kind of, I read this that she had to prove that her husband couldn't perform sexually. And they would literally have to have sex in the court to prove it.
What?
Yes. That's what I read.
I don't think that's probably why nobody did it.
That's why no one did it.
I wouldn't want to try to do that in front of people.
Of course you can't finish anything. People are watching you.
Performance anxiety to a whole new level.
Price of a wife would vary from considerably high, like several hundred pounds, to a few pence and a jar of gin. It could be anything. In 1862, a man sold his wife for a pint of beer. Like he was like, I don't care, get her out of here. I'll give you that beer. I'm happy. In 1796, Jane Heband sold by her husband for 5 shillings because she was too much for him. And this is what he published.
Okay.
To be sold for 5 shillings. My wife, Jane Heband, she's stoutly built and is sound wind and limb. Whatever.
What?
She can sow and reap, hold a plow, and drive a team, and would answer any stout, able man that could hold a tight rein, for she is a damned hard mouth and headstrong. But if properly managed, would even...
She's me.
Yeah.
She's me.
Would either lead or drive a rabbit. I don't know half of what they said, but the gist of it is, this woman is too strong-headed and too much for my weak little masculinity to handle. Some real man needs to take her on. So I'm going to sell her for 5 shillings. And he did. In 1832, Joseph Thompson sold his wife Mary at the Carlisle market for 20 shillings.
And she was expensive.
Yes, and a Newfoundland dog.
Oh, a Newfoundland.
I almost would sell people for that too. Doggy. I mean,
yeah, but the Newfies drool.
They do.
They have drool that is its own like entity. It doesn't like biodegrade. It just hangs out forever. It does. Ever go away.
Our neighbor has one growing up, and they still have one. My parents' neighbor, and it'd get slobber on you, and that would be on your clothes. They never washed out.
Slime. It's there forever.
It was there for the rest of our lives. This is what he said. She bare to me only a born serpent. I took her for my comfort, but she became my tormentor. A domestic curse, a night invasion, and a daily devil.
So he's trying to sell her.
He's trying to sell her. But he starts...
Who's going to want to buy her?
Yeah, but here, listen. Then he introduced the bright sunny side of her. He was not giving the whole picture.
Okay.
She can read novels and milk cows. She can laugh and weep with the ease that you can drink a glass of ale when you're thirsty. She can make butter and scold the maid. She makes rum, gin, and whiskey. Therefore, I am selling her for 50 shillings. Well, he got 20 shillings and a newfie. So, yeah, whatever. Close enough. Hey, listen, she can make gin and whiskey?
I'd buy her.
I would too.
I would never buy it.
I wouldn't give my dog, though.
No. I don't have a dog, but I wouldn't trade her for my cat.
No. It was also common that if you had children, they were thrown in as a package deal.
What?
So you're just selling your kids and your wife.
Oh my God.
See you later.
Well, it's probably because she didn't give them sons. So,
Yeah.
It's not worth anything.
Now, the sales really ended in people being mad at each other. Usually the wife and the new husband and old husband would sit down together with a pint and have a good laugh. So it was all good fun. They had a great time with it. And what it basically is, a lot of times it was when someone was having an affair, they would get sold to the new person, and then he would be done with her and wouldn't have to worry about it.
Or he wanted to marry someone else.
Yes. The most famous case involved Henry Bridges, the Duke of Shanders. He was traveling to London in the 1730s, and the Duke stopped at an inn called the Pelican in Newbury. After dinner, there was a stir in the courtyard, and a man was selling his wife, leading her to the market, basically. She was leading her around by a rope on her neck.
That's nice.
Yeah. The Duke wanted to see, what is this about? I'm going to go look at this sale of a wife, because people were telling him. When he entered the yard, the Duke was so smitten with the woman's beauty and patient, and the way she was patient and waiting to be set free from her ill-conditioned husband, that he bought her himself.
Oh.
And it doesn't say how much he bought her for. However, he did not take her as